So for today's talk, just continuing on the main theme of how to meditate. And remember yesterday, the most important thing, it's not what you're experiencing, but how you're experiencing it. It is learning how to make good meditation karma with every moment. And then we get good results. And good karma is making peace, being kind, being gentle. Sometimes making peace is called just letting go, renunciation, giving up. That is the way these things happen. By reducing the wind. So you're not making things happen, you're protecting things and allowing it to grow. Like the cup with water. You hold it and it will always be moving. You put it down and then it becomes peaceful all by itself. And this is such an important thing because we try to meditate by using our will, striving, and you find that just gets you tense. It can get you so far, but not any further. And if you really want to develop toughness, then go and join the US Marines or something. That really makes you tough. But if you really want to be peaceful, it's a different way of relaxing, letting go, especially kindness. And that kindness, and together with mindfulness, becomes a kindfulness. And that got me onto another simile, which is in the book I wrote, Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond, and it's a very common simile, which I have repeated many times. It is based on the simile of the 1,000-petal lotus. Yes, sometimes people think the 1,000-petal lotus is a Mahayana idea, but we have lotuses as well in Theravada. It doesn't really matter what tradition you are, whether it's in a lake, in a Christian monastery, or in the back of a mosque. The lotus doesn't matter where it's born and grows. It's just something which grows according to its nature. But also, when a lotus is fully formed, you will always notice that at night time it's closed up. It's got a hard bud on the outside. And if you didn't know what a lotus was, and you looked at it, you'd be so surprised that inside, in the middle of that lotus, was the most beautiful, fragrant, delicate petals. Because the outside is serrated, rough and dusty, and it has got no fragrance. Just like Ajahn Brahm. Rough, serrated, no fragrance on the outside, but if you go inside, whoa. Now this is one simile, start of the simile, which I like, because every human being is like that lotus. And sometimes you think, no way they're going to get any deep meditation, no way can they get enlightened. Because you look on the outside and they're rough. No fragrance, no beauty, no softness or subtlety. But inside is a beautiful layers of petals. So the point is, how do we go inside? In meditation, we never go on to the next stage of meditation. We never sacrifice this part to go on to something else. The next stage of meditation is always right inside the stage you're in now. You don't go anywhere. You go in. Not on. That's why it's called insight. We look in. The opposite of insight is excite. And you don't get excited. That drives you out. It makes you restless. Insight. Looking in. In. Now, the simile of the lotus. What opens up the lotus flower? Yes, you can get your hands and peel it open. But that is going to destroy that lotus. You use nature. In the early morning, when the sun comes up, the first rays of the sun hit the outermost petal of the lotus, the rough, coarse one. And it warms it up with the warmth and the light of the sun. And slowly, that lotus, the outermost petal, opens up. Why? Because of the combination of the light and the warmth. And when the outermost petal is opened up, you see the next layer of petals, which is still pretty thick and rough, but at least it's got a bit of color and maybe a slight fragrance. But now the outermost sheath is taken off. Now the warmth and the light of the sun can warm up that next layer of petals so that it can open up, revealing the layer of petals inside, so that now they can directly receive the light and the warmth of the sun. Layer after layer, one after another, it opens up to reveal the layer inside, so that can receive the warmth and light of the sun and open up in turn. And as you go deeper and deeper and deeper into the lotus, the petals become more fragrant, more beautiful, more delicate, more subtle. And when you go deep into that lotus, you wouldn't believe such amazing, beautiful colors and fragrances and a very, very light, thin layer of petals could ever exist, but it does. And they're all inside the rough layer. In that simile, the lotus is you. Rough, serrated, coarse, no fragrance, maybe a stink, but no fragrance. And how do you open up the lotus? The warmth and the light of the sun. Kindness is the warmth. Mindfulness is the light. You're aware and kind. Aware and kind, that's all. And so, you're sitting there, sitting down, another meditation, closing your eyes, with my body. I'm aware of it, and I'm kind to it. As I mentioned yesterday, with a sweeping meditation, or just find out any part of your body which is a little bit unpleasant, needs a bit of mindfulness and kindness. You watch it, mindful, kind, it relaxes and relaxes and relaxes until the coarse part of your body disappears and you can go inside. Once the body is relaxed, it can become still. And then when it's still, it just disappears. As a young man, a Buddhist, I didn't have much choice about where I could go to meditation retreats. So I went anywhere. Anywhere there was a retreat, I'd sign up. So it's a Tibetan monasteries, Zen monasteries, any place. But I'm not sure if you've ever been to a Zen monastery on a retreat. That was very scary. Because one of the masters would come behind you with a big stick. And he'd walk behind you. And if he passed you, phew. But if you were nodding, even slightly, he'd whack you on the back. I was very fortunate and lucky in my life as a young Buddhist, because I was at this Zen monastery early in the morning, Sunday morning. It was freezing. People didn't have blankets on, but I was sleepy. But my good fortune was the man sitting next to me was more sleepy than I was. So he got it first. Whack! You know, that cured my sleepiness as well. I was dead straight. It wasn't mindfulness. It was fear. It was terror. But later on, when you sort of woke up and you were aware, And I'd done meditation before. I knew how to be in the present moment. I knew how to be peaceful, how to be silent, not to think. But then we were told to keep our eyes open. And I was always willing to try things out, see what happens. Even though that the meditation I'd been taught before was always closing my eyes, but they want me to keep my eyes open, fine. But we were facing like a whitewashed wall, just a white wall. And so I was facing it about this far in front of me, just watching the wall. Didn't know what I was supposed to do. Sometimes it's best you don't hear any instructions. When you don't know what to do, you don't get in the way of what happens. So there I was, sitting there, not watching my breath. I was supposed to be watching the wall, just being silent in the moment. And then, a crazy thing happened. The wall disappeared. That was fun. That was cool. That was weird because this was the late 60s. In the late 60s, we liked weird things. The wall disappeared. You're just watching it, and then it wasn't there anymore. It wasn't black. It wasn't a hole. It was just nothing there. And I thought, wow, this is really good. And afterwards, it came back again, but you wondered, where had it gone? Where had the wall gone? And then used enough science to actually understand that what was happening is the same as when I close my eyes and I see the inside of my eyelids. And after a few seconds, I see nothing at all. Because it was a constant, unchanging visual object, just a white wall. And because I wasn't thinking, I wasn't watching my thoughts, I was actually focused fully on the wall. And because it never changed or moved, it vanished. It disappeared. That is just the nature of the human brain. It's only wired, it's evolved to notice things which move and change. If something stays perfectly still, if it stays the same, it vanishes. And that was a wonderful insight, because that made me understand the simile of the lotus and the simile of meditation. If you are sitting perfectly still, and you're not thinking, you're in the moment, and there's no aches and pains or stuff in the body, you're watching the body, and then it vanishes, it disappears. It's not there anymore. Like last night, somebody said their hands had vanished, the legs had vanished, their teddy bear had vanished. Because it wasn't moving, nothing was happening. And then the brain turns that sense off. So when you're watching, after a while, you're not seeing blackness, you're not seeing anything at all. The sense of sight has turned off. And the body, to turn the body off, like smell. Smell is very easy to turn off because you're in a room, there's no incense. That's actually why they used incense in the old days, because people's personal hygiene wasn't that good. So at least they could actually put the incense in there and it stopped people smelling, just everything else. But even in these days, even though we've got good personal hygiene, still that sometimes people may have indigestion and they may pass wind. So we always say that if that's you, if you've got indigestion and lots of farts coming out the back, please, out of compassion for everybody else, please sit on the back seats so there's no one behind you. And that explains why the people sitting in the back seats are there. Maybe. Imagine you're sitting in the front and all these people behind. They have to suffer. That's not compassionate. Only joking. Sorry, that's only a joke. I'm not offending anybody, I hope. But anyway, usually smell is very easy to turn off. And same as taste in the mouth. Saliva has a taste. But because it's always there, you don't notice it anymore. So those senses are very easy to turn off. The two difficult ones are your body sense touch and the most difficult sound. because it's always some of the birds, whatever it is, and the doors and people rustling or coughing. Sound is very difficult to turn off, which is one of the reasons why we try our best to in a quiet place. But even though they have the sound of the aircon now, after a while you won't hear that aircon sound. It doesn't have to be perfectly quiet. We just need a constant background noise for it to disappear. So what we're doing, we're looking at our body first of all, relaxing it until the body disappears. Oh, actually, I've run ahead of myself first of all, because before the body can disappear, like I mentioned in that simile of the Zen monastery, that I'd already learned how to be present and be silent. If you're thinking or got the past and the future, that phenomenon never happens. The war will never vanish because you're focusing on thoughts which are moving this way and that way. So, you learn, first of all, to go in the center of time. You got this first layer of petals outside the rough one, and I call that the time layer of petals. You're mindful and kind to the past, mindful and kind to the present, and they vanish after a while. They're not a problem, they're not your business. Again, it has to be the mindfulness and the kindness. If you try and avoid it when it comes up, some emotion from the past, some memory or some fear of the future, if you try and reject it, deny it, it just gives it more strength. But if you're aware of it, it comes up, some memory of the past, and you're kind to it, open the door of your heart to this moment, because a door is something that things will enter your mind, but keep the door open and then it will go out again afterwards. Doors are not just to come in, they're also to go out. And so if you just open the door of your heart to your past or your future with kindness, then after a while you're not feeding those old memories or those fears, and they tend to vanish. Past and future gone. And you go inside that layer of petals called time, into the present moment, right now. That's going in. And that's a very nice layer of petals. But you may still be thinking and labeling. Thinking and labeling doesn't get you very far, because it misses the point. The old simile, I can't get a better one up this morning, was when I went to Dhammasara Monastery for a visit, and they always say, can't you give us a Dhamma talk? So I did give them a Dhamma talk, a 1-minute Dhamma talk. I asked, where's the way to the toilet? And I was been there longer than any of the nuns. Remember going to the place even before we brought it. So I know where all those places are. So I said, it's just over there, it's got the door, it's got like a toilet. Oh, thank you. And so I went to the door and I pretended, I didn't really do it, I pretended to urinate on the toilet, on the door. And they said, what are you up to? I said, well look, it says toilet. It's a toilet, so there must be the door. They had the name on it. That's what it says. It says toilet and it's a big door. So I pretended to urinate and they said, what are you doing, Ajahn Brahm? He said, this is a problem with labels and thoughts. The labels and the thinking, it's not the thing, is it? It's just pointing. The toilet's inside the door. Even though you put the name toilet, really, for accuracy, to actually so that crazy monks like me don't get confused, you should put toilet inside. Make it very clear for people. So, the label is never the thing. The label is pointing to something. That's one of the reasons why thinking doesn't get you anywhere, because it's just like urinating on the toilet door. That's what thinking does. It doesn't actually look, where's that label point to? An example now, another example. I love doing this little exercise. Just be aware, see what happens. peace. 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 Did you notice that after the word was said, in that space before I repeated it, your mind actually went in that direction? And you repeat it quite a few times. And then the mind is really exploring where that word is pointing to. You've gone inside the toilet door. Not just the label toilet, but you've gone inside and what peace really means as an experience. Not with words. The words are just the directions. But it's actually where those directions point is where it's a nice place to go. So actually experience some peace. That's even when we do chanting sometimes. I don't like chanting because if I understood the chant, I do understand the chants, when I understand them, I remember doing this metta chant years and years and years ago, and I could only get about a quarter of the way through it. Not that I didn't know the rest, but you were chanting it, spreading loving kindness to all the beings in the world. And my mind just followed those instructions. And you just blissed out. I couldn't chant anymore. Just experiencing what those words were pointing you to. And that was really nice. So, what do I want to spoil that beautiful peace and silence? I wasn't giving any instructions anymore. I was actually doing it. So that is why thinking is just giving instructions. It doesn't really go deep. But after a while, you're watching the thought layer of petals, just being aware and being kind. Okay, thoughts, the door of my heart's open to you. If you want to think, it's fine by me. And after a little while, the thinking layer of petals opens up. Silence. The silent mind. And when you get the silent mind, you can silent, just be aware of your body. And of course, that layer of petals opens up and you go inside the body. You know what happens next? The bodily feelings have gone. No past, no future, no thinking. As I mentioned, the only thing which moves is the only thing you can be aware of. Things which don't move at all disappear. Body's not moving, the mind's not moving into past or future or thought, and there's one thing left which is moving. In the first year that I came, even the first few weeks, I came to Perth. One of the people who would come to our center said that they had imported the first flotation chamber, sensory deprivation chamber. It was like a tank of salty water. So you put some bathers on and you would float in there without any pressure on anywhere in your body. You wouldn't sink, you wouldn't sort of go to the top. You're just nicely balanced in there without any pressure anywhere. And it was at your body temperature, not hot, not cold, so you could really relax the body. It was soundproof and totally dark. And what else was there? It was actually sensory deprivation, trying to turn off all of your senses so you could really, really relax. No aches and pains. Better than a bed because you were floating. And totally dark, no sound. And so they invited the Buddhist monks to try it out. And because of hierarchies, anyway, Ajahn got in there first day. And he reported to me afterwards, what was it like? And he said it was really noisy in there. What do you mean, really noisy? It was soundproof. Yeah, you couldn't hear any sounds from outside, but you could hear my sounds, especially the breathing. because there was nothing else going on, that was really prominent. But anyway, I didn't mind because I was due to go the next day. But that morning, somebody bought the local paper, and there was a big advertisement for flotation chambers, as used by senior Buddhist monks. It was a scam. They tricked us into going in there so they could use us for an advertisement campaign. That was really mean. So our committee said, no, you can't go in there. And I said, well, damage has been done, doesn't matter. No. I was really upset. But anyway, it did teach me something, because what it teaches you is that, yeah, when all the body disappears, no past, no future, the only thing which is left is your breath, yeah. That is why I always wondered, why is the breath is the most praised meditation by the Buddha, the path. Why the Buddha always taught the breath, and why in all traditions the breath meditation is usually, always, the most important. Because you don't even need to go looking for it. It's a default position. When everything else vanishes and disappears, that's the only thing which is left, the breath. Sometimes, I should say this now, sometimes though, you're watching the breath, there's one other thing which is moving when everything else becomes calm and peaceful, and that is your heart. And it does happen sometimes that people actually start to watch their heart rather than their breath. And that's a distraction, because if you calm your heart down, slow down the beats until it becomes perfectly still, then you're in big trouble. Doesn't matter about the breath, that's easy. So what we normally do, if there is a distraction like that, you're getting into meditation, you hear boom, boom, especially if you get excited, boom, 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 but you want to sort of go to the heart. Now that is a problem, and there is a solution. Because if you put too much effort and stress, it just gets worse. So what we do, we use a simile, which is, again, the simile of when you watch a TV. Because when you watch the screen of your tablet or whatever, your iPhone, you always notice, I didn't understand this at first, when I was sitting in the economy class in Singapore Airlines and you had this tiny screen, you had to watch it for the safety demonstration. I was watching that there, and then after a few seconds, I couldn't see the upholstery of the seat in front of me. I couldn't even see the plastic of the border of the screens. By watching it, my mind had just fitted perfectly into that small screen. And I also noticed over the years, visiting people's houses, how bigger and bigger and bigger their TV screens get. And honestly, the experience you get watching a huge TV screen and a small TV screen on the back seat of Singapore Airlines is exactly the same. Once you sort of, your mind fits into it, it fits in perfectly. Well, however big the screen is, big, your mind fits into that. Small, it fits into that. Otherwise, how could you watch YouTube videos on your little iPhones? They're tiny. The only time you notice the size of the screen is when it's not turned on. So check it out. Your mind actually fits in, so you can't see the edges. Now that's important, because understanding that, you understand how, if you have a distraction like the breathing, or even if early on in meditation, having a distraction like somebody making a noise, how to deal with distractions. You have this huge screen of your mind, making sure your meditation object, maybe if it's this case it's the breath, is in the center. So you're watching your breath in the center. Yeah, the heart is over here somewhere, boom, 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 boom. But if you think the heart is a problem, the heart will come to the center of the screen and the breath will be onto the side. Whatever's the center will actually remain. For example, you're watching me now. You focus on me, and then everything to the left and the right soon disappears. It's the nature of the mind. Just what you look at in the center is maintained. So I'm watching you now, and you've disappeared over there, wherever you are. Oh, there you are again. Actually, you've disappeared. You focus in and things on the edge fall off the screen. So if you do have watching the breath and the heart starts to disturb you, because pump, 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 don't bring the heart into the center of your field of attention. Leave it out there, it'll sort itself out. Don't make it a problem. Keep your awareness on the breath, and then what's on the edge, you won't know when this happens. It will just fall off the edge as you focus in on the breath. Someone is making a noise, burping or whatever, focus in the center, which is your breath, whatever your main meditation object, and after a while you won't be able to hear them. The classic story of two of my disciples, Malaysians, who were at home watching the TV one day, and they were really focused on the TV. It must have been a great movie. And at the end of the TV performance, they got up, one to go to the toilet, one to boil some hot water to make a cup of tea or coffee. And it was only then, when they got up from the sofa, did they realize that someone had been in the house while they were watching the TV. Many things, valuable things, were missing. Even from the shelves right behind the sofa. It was a very, very cheeky burglar that got into their house while they were watching the TV, this is a true story, while they were watching the TV and stole things from right behind them. And they didn't hear a thing because they were so focused on the TV that everything else fell off the screen. If you understand that, if your husband is watching the football and you try and talk to them, darling, time for dinner, you're already off the screen. They can't hear you. You don't exist. And that's the truth of the matter. You focus. And I told this couple, if only you could do that while you're meditating, that'd be wonderful. So things on the edge fall off the screen. That's called focusing. But anyway, there you are. You are watching the breath. What do? Just watch the breath go in, watch the breath go out. It's quite natural. It happens by itself. You don't have to work on it. Everything else has been let go of. You're just watching the breath go in, breath go out. So what happens next? As you watch more and more, doing less and less, your mindfulness increases. You see more of the breath. It's not just beginnings and ends. It's everything right from the beginning of an in-breath to the end of an in-breath. And this is where I introduce this, how mindfulness is developed. Mindfulness is just not something you force and say, I'm now going to be mindful. Mindfulness is developed and it has a huge range of different strengths and powers. Because what happens is, the more you are still, the less your mind thinks, plans, and controls. The more that energy just goes into knowing. If you do a lot, worry a lot, have lots of business and stress, your mind is so worn out, it doesn't have much energy left for mindfulness. You can't see bright colors. You can't taste the flavors in food. Even jokes you don't find funny, even though because they're from me, they should be hilarious. Just like, can I tell that joke which I gifted to you this morning, Upal? I think it came from Christina. She said, a cockroach was about to be killed by a man. And that cockroach spoke his last words to the man about to kill him. You coward. You're only killing me because you're jealous. Because, this is the cockroach speaking to the guy who's about to squash him. You're only jealous because I can scare your wife and you can't. So it's a really funny joke, but say if someone's really depressed, that's all you get out of it. And the reason is, the mind hasn't got no energy. And I sometimes see, at the end of a retreat, especially when people's meditation goes up, you can say anything and people laugh. They got the giggles. There we go, it's coming. And one of the reasons is because you actually got some energy coming up. So what happens is that no energy, really low energy, which is so common in our modern world, you're depressed. And it's because you've been working too hard, doing too much, thinking too much, worrying too much, anxious too much. Because you're worried, it's like a vicious cycle. Because you're worried and anxious, you can't sleep, you can't rest, and life becomes really dull. And the most delicious food, you can't taste it. It's just bleh. The most beautiful sights, bleh. Everything is grey. You can't enjoy anything. All it is low energy. But when you start meditating, you're not wasting energy. You're not thinking too much. Right here, you've got very few duties, no problems, no work. There you go, you've got to cut up some vegetables. I mean, how stressful is that? Not very much. So after a while, you relax, you don't have to think too much. Because you don't have to, you still do, but you don't have to think so much, and the pressure gets off you, you start to relax. And you find that you become more aware. All it is the energy which you waste, thinking, worrying, planning, all that energy is freed to go into knowing, into mindfulness. You're boosting, it gets energized, the mindfulness. And I love that phenomena, because when you really get some energy up, lots of mindfulness up, everything looks beautiful. And it's amazing, the experiences you have. First retreat I ever did in Cambridge, it was a boarding house. This was in the holidays, the vacation time. So we hired these boarding houses, because the students weren't there, really cheap. But there was one big problem, and that was boarding house food in the 60s and 70s for students. Because of all the chefs, all the cooks in the whole country, the ones who couldn't get a job anywhere else would get the bottom of the pile job cooking food for impoverished students. And it was notorious. The food was usually meat and 2 veg. It didn't matter what the veg was, it all tasted the same, because any flavour had been boiled out of it. Everything was just really, really tasteless. And I really thought of taking sandwiches or something to supplement that tasteless food. But I was so amazed that you had your breakfast and we had dinner in that place, there's 5 precepts, and it was such delicious food. And I thought I was so lucky that of all the cooks in all the boarding houses for students in that country, my good karma meant I've got one who could actually cook. And I thought it was the cook, and it wasn't. All it was had some good meditation. My mindfulness has got so strong that even the slightest, the tiniest remaining flavour after all that boiling, I could pick up. I really could. I remember actually last year, I think, after I did a retreat over in Bodhinyana, just a personal retreat. After I finished my retreat, get some nice meditation, my mind was really powerful. And I remember the first thing in the morning, the breakfast, I had some baked beans. And I put a spoon of baked beans in my mouth. Wow! It was like an explosion of flavour. Just, the saltiness, the sweetness, the texture of a bean, the tomato-ness. I mean, it was incredible. It was so rich and full. And I never tasted a baked bean like that ever before. It was amazing. It was, wow! And it's only a bean. But my mindfulness was so strong, you got everything out of it. And that was amazing. And I love experiences like that. Sometimes after good meditation, you look at the floor. Look at all that stuff going on in that floor. all the yellows and the browns, and just, it's like a work of art. Everything starts to get really, really beautiful. That's what mindfulness does. And the story which I tell at every retreat, which I cannot resist, and many of you know what's coming, it's one of my grossest stories ever, but it's true. This happened, and I can show you the toilet cubicle where it happened. We should put a sign in there. This is where Ajahn Brahm had this experience. So nice meditation here in Jhana Grove. I meditate as well, not just talk. And there I was meditating. Oh, just really beautiful meditation. Really happy afterwards. A lot of energy, lots of joy. You had to go to the toilet to do what we call a number 2. You know what a number 2 is? Yeah, okay, you know what number 2 is. So you went to the toilet, did a number 2, and made a big mistake. My big mistake was after, doing my thing. Before flushing the toilet, I looked in the contents of the bowl. Wow. It was incredible. No exaggeration. What you saw in that bowl, not even a Rodin or a Michelangelo could actually just put together something so incredibly beautiful and even, honestly, sensuous. The little balls, just the way they're all put together like an incredible sculpture. And it's not just one brown. It's got all these different shades of brown, hundreds of shades of brown. The way they all interacted together with their colour, and they related to one another. And it was just incredible how this could be put together like that. It was wonderful. And I also remember there was a tiny bit of mucus on there, so that was like a diamond twinkling in the bottom of the bowl, glittering. And I was just going, wow, look at that. It's amazing. And I never actually got onto the fragrance yet. The fragrance, full and earthy. Not these just false, fragrances you find in perfume bottles or in the soap powder. That's just so fake and so superficial. It's not real. This is life. This is earth. This is this incredible deep and full. And your nostrils had an explosion of wow. And I'm going to get into this, but you encouraged me. And but I honestly thought, this was a thought which did come up. I'm going to pick this up and show my friends. And it was only my training, been a monk for many years, that I could let go. But it was tough. Sometimes you have grief when you lose someone you love. That was like me. I pressed the button. No, I can't. Come on. No. About 5 more minutes. And you press the button, and the most beautiful piece of shit in the world just went out of my life forever. I think I'm still traumatized. Maybe post-traumatic stress, that's the reason. But I tell that story, and amazingly, it's not much exaggeration there, hardly any exaggeration at all. That was actually gorgeous. And how can the most disgusting thing in the world look so beautiful? And it's just because your mind is so strong. It's got so much energy. Your mindfulness is empowered. Now, it may not be in the contents of a toilet bowl, but you go outside and you see a flower. You see the sunset. You see the clouds in the sky. It blows you away. It's more beautiful than you've ever seen before. Why? Your mindfulness is growing strong. That's a sign. And it's also so fun and so joyful. Meditation is actually happening. You're getting some paychecks, big ones. You know, and it's simple things. You don't rush your food. Even like a cup of tea. Wow, a cup of tea, you can't rush it. It's just so gorgeous. You just taste everything. And you can feel it going into your stomach, and wow. That's because your mindfulness is getting really, really strong because of stillness. You try and make it happen, you get tired. You relax, let be, don't do anything. And the mindfulness and the energy start coming up. So then what happens, how that relates to the meditation, you're watching your breath, your mindfulness starts to increase in its power. You can see more. It's not just a lump of bamboo, it's just, wow, look at that. You can see more into it. And your breath becomes so beautiful, so delightful. If a piece of shit can be delightful, imagine your breath. It's incredible, just this breath just coming, bringing this oxygen, this life into your body. And it brings this oxygen, this actually comes from many of the plants, anything which is green in the forest. That's why this is a great place to meditate, because there's so much plant life around here, so much green, so many trees. The oxygen level is gorgeous, it's really high, pure, very little pollution here. And so when that comes into your body, it's incredible, purifying, giving you energy, going not just into your lungs, everywhere. And at the end of just one in-breath cycle, then you let it go. And that sort of out-breath takes all the toxins, the carbon dioxide, all this other stuff which has to be released from your body. It's a cleansing of your body. And it's not polluting the world because the trees, everything which is green, takes up that carbon dioxide. This beautiful relationship you have with nature as you breathe. It's not just breathing in, breathing out. It's incredible, it's powerful, it's deep. Now you're getting into some deep layers of petals. The breath becomes a delightful breath. And you're sitting there and just, wow, I can do this for hours. Oh yeah, breathe in. If you haven't got delight yet in your meditation, don't go, I've got to work harder. Please don't do that. Just relax, just be more still. Don't think so much. And then you'll find the energy comes. Now, this is really hard for me because people always want to attain things. And so they start doing stuff. Get up early, don't sleep well, just start talking, checking your emails, whatever it is. Just throwing away the opportunity for peace and stillness and this beautiful energy coming up. When that energy does come up, really peaceful energy, that's why people love coming to places like this. Everyone, they just bliss out, having a wonderful time, happy. This is great, oh yeah. No drugs, no alcohol. It's a natural energizing of mindfulness which brings huge happiness. And this is only breath meditation. The breath gets so refined because you don't do anything. You don't want to do anything. It's just peaceful. It's just joyful. You're having a great time. And because you don't move anything, because you don't do anything, you don't have to, you get really content, deeply content, the energy keeps increasing. All the energy which would usually go in criticizing, taking notes, making it happen, or stopping things happening, all of that energy just flows into your mindfulness. The breath becomes gorgeous. And the joy, the happiness gets so strong that dominates. You're not watching your breath anymore, just what really is taking over is the joy, the happiness, the piti sukha. It's supposed to happen. Sign of strong mindfulness. You're going next layer of petals inside the breath. Now you're getting to the amazing, incredibly gorgeous, fragrant layers of petals. And that's the lights, the nimittas. Beautiful. They just happen by themselves. Don't go looking for them. If you go looking for them, you just stop them happening. So you just develop the stillness, the contentment, the peace. And it just builds and builds and builds. And then you get this very powerful mind, Beautiful lights in the mind. It's only lights because that's the mind being energized. If anyone knows a Pali, Pabhasara Jitta, the radiant mind, because it's like looking at your mind in a mirror. That's how you usually see it. Beautiful, beautiful light. Now when that happens, then you'll fly. If it hasn't happened, I've got another 4 days, I'm going to make it happen. I want. That's my problem. Whenever you start going into the deep parts of the lotus, people always start to get craving and wanting. So be careful. It doesn't come from wanting. It comes from stillness. Wanting stops the stillness. It just makes waves on the lake. So there you are, just this beautiful, beautiful warrior. For many people, you get scared. You're in the big time now. Beautiful, strong nimittas, credible mindfulness. No, don't get scared, for goodness sake. You're getting into deep states of meditation, but they're good for you. Some people say, oh, better not, because I've got to go to work when I get back. If I carry on like this, I'm going to become a nun. There's nothing wrong with becoming a nun, is there, Venerable Chandra? It's beautiful, it's wonderful. There was this one person, I better not say who it is. They were on this retreat over in Sri Lanka, and it was a bit of a scallywag teacher, telling them, oh, you're a stream winner now. And then the husband would ring up his wife back in Perth, oh, I've told I'm a stream winner today. Oh, congratulations, that's amazing. And then a week later, because he carried on, oh, the teacher said, I'm a non-returner. I've made non-returning now. Wow, that's really impressive. And then another week, he rang up his wife in Perth. The teacher said, I'm a non-returner. And at that, the wife said, enough. Come home, pay off the mortgage first, go to work, and then you can go on and become the last stage. Really funny way to say it, because the poor wife, if he became an arhat, became a monk, then no one to work and pay the mortgage off. She's a very practical lady, very devout Buddhist. But anyway, you get beautiful meditation, just go for it. And it's totally happy and healthy. And then afterwards you get into the big league. The bliss just takes over and you just go right inside the bliss. And those become the jhanas. Can't hear anything. Just sitting down here, and just like that little novice, bell goes, people go off to have lunch, or whatever, there. You're just right inside yourself. Can't feel anything. People tap you on the shoulder, lunchtime. Yeah. You can't even feel it. 5 senses totally vanished. Peaceful and blissful. Now you're getting some experience, which is what you're supposed to do as a Buddhist meditator. And it's giving you huge amounts of direct experience of what it's like to let go. And why your will controlling, stopping you, is enemy number one. Why we do let go. Why we do become still. Why we do become empty of our body. You come back again afterwards. You come back again, walking on air. I mean, not levitating, but just so happy and so joyful. And the usual side, when you get that deep into the lotus, is like, I call it like the afterglow, for want of a better word. People have a really deep meditation, and they come up afterwards. And the nearest I can explain it is like when, as a young man or a young woman, you fall in love for the first time. Oh, I'm in love. Oh, the whole world is beautiful. The stars are so close I can almost touch them. Everything is just gorgeous. But that's not another person of the same or other sex involved. This is your mind. You just had a beautiful jhana. You're high. You're beautiful. Everything is gorgeous. So what's one of the little... Well, okay, I'll tell you my tricks. Sometimes if somebody comes up and says they've got a jhana, and I say, women can't get jhanas. And I wait, see if there's any reaction. They say, what are you talking about, Ajahn Brahm? That's misogynist. Women can do as much as men. It's okay, I know that, but obviously you haven't had a jhana. You can say anything to people after jhana, just, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay, whatever you say. So as you try and poke them, anything just to see if you get a reaction. If they don't get a reaction, yeah, you pass the test, well done. Body is a jhana. So this is just what happens. You go deep into the lotus, into some of the deepest, most amazing stages. And you do it. And you think, wow, I can do it. Anyone can. Not everyone will, but everyone can. And I finish off, to open up that lotus, go right inside, see what's in the center of you, because all those inner petals are inside you. You just need to sort of try and find a way to open it up. Not with force, but with mindfulness and kindness. The warmth and light of the sun. Just see what's inside, see what happens. Also have to be very patient. It takes a while. Doesn't matter, you've got a while. Nothing else to do this afternoon, tonight, the next few days. So just see what happens. You go really nicely inside and see what happens. So everyone can do it, and they will do it sooner or later, and you understand what the Buddha saw. Understand that what is this Dharma? It's one thing to say it and to talk it, but it's more important that you experience these things for yourself. And that's far out, beautiful. Whoa. Okay, that's the talk about the lotus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Ho, ho, ho. Crazy monk. Oh, you're a guided meditation?
Sure. Maybe I'll ask you.
Yeah, okay.
Who would like a guided meditation? Just a show of hands.
Good. Okay, so we've got it from 2 hands up.
Yeah. 1, 2.
There's only 2 that you can guide her, she can guide you.
There's a few of them.
Oh, there's a few, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Ajahn, teddy bear will guide you in the meditation. Pay attention.